Hey there, retro gaming fans, it's Paul Driscoll here, better known as the Drisk from the RGDS podcast, and we're bringing you another bonus video, and today we're deep diving into the golden age of 16-bit gaming with my personal countdown of the top 50 SEGA Mega Drive games of all time. Now let me be clear, this isn't about what others think are the best Mega Drive or Genesis games. These are my personal favourites, the ones that I like to play the most. Now naturally, my preferences will come into play here. For instance, you won't notice hardly any sports games or turn-based RPGs. It's just not how I roll. But hey, this is all about shouting out 50 cool games, right? And hopefully you'll give them a go. Now the goal here is simple. Let's just celebrate the magic of this iconic console and shine a spotlight on some incredible Mega Drive games. Both iconic and a little underappreciated. So whether you grew up with these classics yourself and rekindling your nostalgic memories or exploring them for the first time, there's plenty to enjoy here. So grab your controller, sit back and let's jump right in, starting with number 50. Let's go. Okay, at number 50 I have chosen Landstalker. This was released in 1992 and is an isometric action-adventure game from Comix Entertainment. Players guide Nigel, a treasure hunter, through a vibrant series of environments filled with puzzles, platforming and exploration. It has sharp, witty dialogue and challenging gameplay with stunning visuals, and I really think it's a standout Sega Mega Drive classic that nobody ever talks about. Okay, let's go on to number 49, and I've chosen Empire Steel, also known as Steel Empire in the US. I prefer the US title. It was released in 1992, and it was developed by Philincap and published by Talmit Japan. This is a real hidden gem in the shoot-'em-up genre. It delivers exhilarating gameplay, unique level design, and all set in this enticing steampunk setting. It's got some great visual effects going on, and it offers an adrenaline-pumping experience for fans of the genre. Okay, at number 48 I've chosen Ghouls and Ghosts, developed by Capcom and published by Sega in 1989. Ghouls and Ghosts is a legendary platform. It probably needs no introduction. You take control of Arthur and you go against braved hordes of undead in search of Princess Prin Prin. Now, this game is, as any in the series really, is famous for its brutal difficulty and the iconic armour upgrades, particularly the suit that destroyed even from a bird strike will shatter away, leaving him in his underpants. But this game remains, rightly so, a fan favourite, with the Mega Drive version being an awesome port of it. It really is. It's probably truer to the arcade, as much as I love the Super Ghouls and Ghosts game on the SNES. Okay, let's go on to number 47, and I've chosen Earthworm Jim, bursting onto the scene in 1994. Of course, developed by Shiny Entertainment and published by Playmates Interactive Entertainment. It has absurd humour, tight gameplay. Probably don't like it as much as others. I love the character, but I find the actual gameplay a little lacking. But it is undeniably a lot of fun and a great laugh and a unique platform, and that's why it had to be on my list. Okay, let's go on to number 46, and I've chosen Valis, the Phantasm Soldier, released in 1991. This was a game developed by Talmit Japan and published by Renovation Products. It features strong storytelling, anime-inspired visuals, and it follows Yuko as she wields a legendary Valis sword to save her world. I really like this. It offers interesting, fun gameplay, and again, it's one that I feel that's fallen off people's memory radar, so it's nice to give it a shout out again here. Okay, let's go on to number 45, and we have Talmax Adventure, released in 1992. It was developed by Game Freak and the studio known for creating Pokemon, of course, and Sega. This is a colourful platformer. It radiates charm with its wonderful graphics and engaging gameplay. It really is a delightful addition to the Mega Drive library, and one of those sort of platformers that that just never ever gets talked about often, so it's nice to shout it out. Okay, we come to number 44, and this has probably surprised people it's on my list at this place, making the list at all, but it's Zany Golf, developed by Will Harvey Software and published by Electronic Arts. It came out in 1988, and it's I just really like it. It's obviously a mini crazy golf game simulator, but it's the only one that I've really got on with, if I'm honest, in a big way. It's got interesting courses that you go on and lovely music. It's just a real chill, something a bit different from the standard Mega Drive fare, and I really love it, and that's why it's on my list here. Okay, let's go on to number 43, and I've chosen Slap Fight MD, released exclusively in Japan in 1993. It was developed by Toplin, the shooting gods, and published by Tengen. Now this is really, really good. Of course it's based on the arcade, but they expanded and extended and improved so much over the arcade original. This is, for me, the best way to play the Slap Fight game, the Slap Fight MD. For those who don't know, it's got tight controls, clever power-up systems, lots of hidden treasure and things to find. It really is a hidden treasure in the genre, and needs to be played by more. Okay, let's go on to number 42, and I've chosen Cool Spot, developed by Virgin Games and published by Virgin Interactive in 1993. Now, of course, Cool Spot was the red spot from the 7-Up, and they made him into a mascot. They gave him shades, hence the term cool. But this is really good. It's got fluid animation, wonderful music, polished platforming, and as crazy it is that a soda mascot could be so iconic, but they really did. Probably the only reason it's lower on my list is, as much as I love the opening world, I feel it goes off a cliff in its design. It's almost like they threw everything at the opening levels to entice people to buy the game, and then really didn't care about the subsequent levels. So that's why it's perhaps so lower on my list than others. Anyway, let's go on to number 41, and we have Panorama Cotton, released in 1994, developed by Success and published by Sunsoft. Now this sort of rail shooter in the style of Space Harrier or something like that really shows stunning visuals and really shows what the Mega Drive is and was capable of. It's got imaginative environments, wonderful gameplay. It really is a graphical par excellence for the Mega Drive and Genesis platform. Wonderful game that maybe a lot of people don't know. Okay, let's go on to number 40, and I've chosen Kid Chameleon. This came out in 1992 and was developed by STI, the Sega Technical Institute, published by Sega themselves. This platformer gives the ability to transform into various characters with unique powers depending on the mask that you put on. It's just a really engaging, fun platformer with light puzzle elements, and yeah, I just love playing it even today. Absolutely massive number of levels as well. It's quite a big game to get your teeth into. Okay, let's go on to number 39, and I've chosen Aladdin as he charms his way with his Disney magic, enticing gamers and players alike. Of course, it was developed by Virgin Games, so the Shiny Interactive crew that became Shiny Interactive, and Sega, and it's had stunning animation, tight platforming, and wonderful soundtrack. Now, it's different from the SNES Aladdin that was done by Capcom. A lot of people prefer the Mega Drive version. I'm probably not in that camp. I prefer the SNES version, if I'm honest, but this is undeniably a brilliant game and well worthy of your time. Okay, let's go on to number 38, and I've chosen Bubba N Stix, released in 1994 and developed by Core Design. Now, this is a quirky platformer. I love it. You play Bubba, who is kind of like a redneck that works with an alien an alien sort of stick-shaped character, and the whole idea is all the different ways you can use the sticks to progress in the level and rescue all the aliens. It's a really fun platform puzzle adventure full of creativity and humour and a wonderful gem. Okay, let's go on to number 37, and a real Sega arcade classic here with Afterburner II, of course developed and published by SEGA and released in 1990. And this did a really good job of bringing the adrenaline of the high-speed aerial combat of the arcades to the Mega Drive. It's a very solid port. At the time, with all the intense dogfights and all that, it just had to make a place on my list, really. I mean, of course, really these days you're more inclined to go towards the arcade original, but sometimes I like that nostalgic kick of playing Afterburner 2. Okay, let's go on to number 36, and it's The Adventures of Batman and Robin, released in 1994 and developed by Clockwork Tortoise and published by SEGA. Now this is totally different from the SNES version. It's basically a run and gun shooter and has stunning visuals, amazing pounding music soundtrack, and I just think it's a really fun game. Of course, you don't get, well, at least on this one you get to play Robin, I guess, because of course, like on the SNES one, famously hardly a beard in it. But yeah, no, I really like Batman and Robin on the Mega Drive. It's a fun, incredibly tough but wonderful shooting adventure. Okay, let's go on to number 35, and I've chosen MUSHA, released in 1990. Stands for Metallic Uniframe Super Hybrid Armor, fact fans, and developed by Compile and published by Token. This is a critically acclaimed vertical shooter. I think a lot of people will be surprised it's so low on my list. I don't rate it as highly as others. I think there's better shooters on there, but it's got amazing music and great gameplay. I mean, it's still a wonderful shooter. Every one of these 50 games that I'm mentioning, I think, are absolutely awesome. I mean, there's hundreds that I've left on the gaming floor when I've chosen these lists. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. Okay, let's go on to number 34, and I've chosen Atomic Runner, developed by Data East and published by SEGA in 1992. This is a side-scrolling shooter where you're continually running. That's really the mantra of it, and of course based on the arcade game. I really love it. The unique run and gun mechanics, the fact that you're always continually moving, so you're always having to think ahead and jump through the platforms accordingly. And yeah, it's great fun taking control of Chelnov to battle and save the world and make your way through to the end. Yeah, I really like this one. Okay, number 33 is Alien 3, based of course on the less than classic film in 1992. Now of course they decided to completely ignore what happened in the film, and this has multiple aliens, but it was the first time that we really had a great depiction of the movies, done by Probe Entertainment and Acclaim Entertainment. And I think this is far more engaging and more fun than the SNES version. The SNES version's a bit more like Metroidvania, and I don't know, I just don't enjoy it as much. But this on the Mega Drive I think is a real classic. Beautiful graphics and just great fun taking down all those xenomorphs. A must play for fans of the franchise, really. Okay, let's go on to number 32, and I've chosen Airbuster, released in 1990, also known as Aero Blasters in Japan, and it's developed by Kaneko and published by SEGA. This is a horizontal shooter, of course based on the arcade, and it's really, really fun. It's great 1 or 2 player action, blasting your way through, great music, great visuals. The Mega Drive had some amazing shooters, and this is case in point. You are going to see a lot of shooters on my top 50. Okay, let's go on to number 31, and I've chosen Havoc, or High Seas as it's also known in some region, and it's done by Traveller's Tales, of course the people that went on to do Lego, and published by SEGA. It's a pirate themed platformer full of swashbuckling action with its colourful graphics and engaging gameplay. It really is a platformer that I never hear anybody talk about, and it's a shame because this is a really good one. I love the visual styles and the graphics used in it, and the music. It's just a forgotten platformer of today, and it needs to be thought of and played again. Okay, let's go on to number 30. We're already on number 30, and it is Golden Axe, released in 1989, developed and published by SEGA. And of course this is the iconic beat-em-up arcade game that transported players back to the mythical land of Uria, where they could wield weapons and magic to defeat the evil Death Adder. Its co-op gameplay and memorable characters like Axe Battler, Tyrus Flare, Gilius the Dwarf. It just is, it's fun. It's wonderful classic. The Mega Drive has a wonderful port of it. Of course, they also had the sequel and a third one that came out as well. But yeah, this at the time really was one of the selling points of the Mega Drive, and one that I always loved to go back to. Okay, let's go on to number 29, and I've chosen Alien Soldier, released in 1995 and developed by Treasure and published by SEGA. This is, of course, known for its wonderful use of the Mega Drive hardware. Treasure really could make the machines sing that they worked on. This is kind of like an ongoing boss battle. It's like, let's cut out all the run and gun shooting bits and just do boss battle after boss battle. It is a masterpiece, probably lower on my list personally because I actually find it a bit tiring, the constant onslaught of boss battles. I do like the normal run and gun elements to break up the action, but nevertheless, this is classic. It pushed the Mega Drive to its hardware limits and is definitely one to try. Okay, let's go on to number 28, and I've chosen Comix Zone. It came out in 1995, and this did a great job of, doing a platform puzzle game where you go into the comics and you're going in between frames. It's kind of like a beat 'em up more than a platformer, but it's really, really good. Developed and published by SEGA. I love the idea of you're an artist pulled into the comics and you're sort of working your way through the game, going from comic panels to comic panel as Sketch Turner, I think your name is. And it's just one that is great fun to play. A little short, that's probably why it's a little lower on my list, but definitely a Mega Drive classic that was unique to the platform. Talking of classic, let's go on to number 27, and I've chosen Elemental Master, released in 1993, developed by Technosoft and published by Renovation Products. This is a top-down shooter. You're walking around shooting all the enemies, and it's got a wonderful soundtrack, just great fun gameplay. It's yet another amazing shooter on the Mega Drive, and one definitely worth playing. Okay, let's go on to number 26, and I've chosen Monster World 4, developed by Westone Bit Entertainment and published by SEGA, released in 1994. This is an action-adventure game where you control Aisha. Of course, it's following on from the Wonder Boy universe. It's part of that series, and this is really good of that ilk. You're on a quest to save the monster world, and it's got charming visuals, heartfelt stories, tight gameplay. It really is a hidden gem, because I really rate all the Wonder Boy games really, but this is one that often gets forgotten. Okay, let's go on to number 25, and this will probably shock people that it's so high on my list. It is Fantastic Dizzy, released in 1991, developed by Codemasters and published by Tengen. This is a course puzzle platform. I love Dizzy. You go through picking up objects, talking to individuals to progress your way through. It's sort of an adventure platformer. It's a great version. Obviously on the Mega Drive you've got the colourful, whimsical world. I sort of flip-flop. I do prefer the Master System. I guess there's something about that 8-bit charm, but undeniably and naturally the 16-bit version of it is wonderful. And for me, I love going back to it again and again, so that's why it's so high on my list. Okay, let's go on to number 24, and I've chosen Dynamite Headdy, released in 1994, and another one developed by Treasure and published by SEGA. This is a bright, vibrant platformer with really inventive gameplay. It really comes up with great ideas where Headdy could swap his head for various abilities. Imaginative design, wonderful humour, just a great music and a great platformer that deserves more love today. I think it's fallen out of memory with a lot of people. Okay, let's go on to number 23, and I've chosen DecCap Attack, released in 1991 by Vic Tokai and published by SEGA. This is a quirky platformer. You play Chuck the Head, a mummy-like character, and you naturally chuck your head as a weapon, and it's got wacky levels. It's got a weird, unique art style. I don't know, always like it's kind of dark and a bit dingy, but it undeniably has a lot of humour and charm, and it's definitely one I really love going back to as well. Okay, let's go on to number 22. We're rattling through this list, and I've chosen Advanced Battlehawk Gleylancer, or Gleylancer to its friends. That's how I tend to remember it. But it came out in 1992, and it's developed by the NCS Corporation and published by MUSHA. This is a really good horizontal shooter. I love the graphics, the brilliant music. It's got quite cool customizable weapons as you sort of make your way through. I just think it's a real standout in the genre, and that's why it's so high. It's one of my favourite shooters on the Mega Drive, or of all time, really. Okay, at number 21, and I have chosen Flashback, released in 1993 and developed by Delphine Software and published by US Gold. Now, it combines cinematic platforming with gripping sci-fi narrative, and has you follow Conrad as he fights to recover his memory and work out what's going on. Of course, what stood out for the game was the realistic animation, the deep storyline. It really was a revolutionary game at the time, and it's still one that I probably don't like as quite as much as other people, but it definitely is an undeniable classic, and it had to be on my list. Really, the Mega Drive version is the standout version, I think, of the one that catapulted things to, it really was a platform that is best known for. Okay, let's go on number 20. We're already at top 20, and I've chosen Micro Machines Turbo Tournament 96, developed by Codemasters and published by them as well. Of course, famous because they were able to circumvent the both NES and the Mega Drive and make their own carts. What was cool, this actually had the 2 additional ports built into the cart, so it allowed you 4-player right off the cart. Of course, I think everybody knows the Micro Machines overhead, those little miniature toy cars, and you drive around tabletops and bathtubs and make your way through. It's such a fun game, and this is probably, I think, as much as I love the original, it's probably the best one of the series. But then I do love some of the 3D ones as well. Anyway, we're on to number 19, and people probably surprised it's so low on my list. It is Gunstar Heroes, released in 1993 on the Mega Drive, and it's another one developed by Treasure. They really are at the pinnacle of continual releases on the Mega Drive that's made my list. This has fast-paced, wonderful co-op run and gun action, over-the-top bosses. It really shows and pushes the hardware to and beyond what you think is capable. It's a hallmark for the system, and I think it's really, really good, but I don't like it quite as much as others, but definitely one to play, a real classic. Okay, let's go on to number 18, and I've chosen Gaiares, released and developed by Talmit and published by Renovation Products. Now, it came out in 1990. It's got that amazing music, and it's a wonderful side stroller. What's particularly good is the inventive weapon and power-up system, because you can actually use sort of side device to fire out and grab the enemies and bring them to fight on your side. So it helps you in the absorbing to build up the weapons that you want. It works really well. It's a great shooter. It's one that I always go back to. It's rock hard, but yeah, I think it's one that if you've not played it, give it a go. You won't regret it. Okay, let's go on to number 17, and I've chosen yet another Treasure game with Donald's Treasure Land Adventure, released in 1993. Now, people are probably shocked that this is above some of the other Treasure games, but I love this charming platformer. I don't particularly like the McDonald branding, but it has inventive gameplay, colourful visuals. It just is a wonderful Treasure developed game, as all of them are, but I guess it's the one that often gets forgotten about by Treasure, so it's kind of nice to give it a little shout out here. Definitely one that I love going back to and playing through. Okay, let's go on to number 16, and I've chosen Castlevania Bloodlines, released in 1994 on the Mega Drive and published by Konami. Now, of course, Mega Drive owners were salivating with jealousy at the Super Castlevania, so when this did finally come to the Mega Drive and it's its own game, its own Castlevania game, this really sort of was a wonderful thing. It's a great series, of course, but this is one of the ones I really love going back to. It's probably the second one I played after these. I had played Super Castlevania, and this was probably the second one that I played before, obviously getting into all the Game Boy Advance ones, etc. because I didn't own an NES, so I came to the series quite late. Okay, then we're on number 15 now, and I've chosen Twinkle Tale, released in 1992, developed by Wonder Amusement Studio and published by Toyo Kaza. This is an isometric action-adventure, wonderful shooter. You're sort of wandering around shooting everything. You play a little witch, and it's one that no one really talks about. I think it's such a great shooter on the Mega Drive. Such a classic. It really is, I think, the definition of a hidden gem. And yet again proves how prolific the Mega Drive shooting library is and why I love the Mega Drive so much. Okay, let's go on to number 14, and I've chosen Super Hang-On. This is developed by SEGA, of course, and published by them, and came out in 1989, and of course it probably needs no introduction. It's a high-speed motorcycle racing action, being the sequel to Hang-On, and it has obviously the thing that was about Super Hang-On was that you had like a turbo button, so you could go even faster when you hit top speed. This actually does a lot more than the arcade routes. It's not a straight port. You can build up funds as you sort of play through. Gives a lot of replayability. I think it's a great home port, and one that needs to be chipped in and played by more again, because I think people forget that the Mega Drive version offers so much more over the arcade original. Okay, let's go on to number 13, and I've chosen Quackshot, starring Donald Duck and released in 1991. This was developed and published by SEGA, and it has Donald Duck on a treasure hunting adventure. This has amazing visuals, and I love Donald Duck. I've always preferred him over Mickey Mouse, if I'm honest, as a character. And yeah, this has charming visuals and great gameplay. It is short, but I just love it. I love one of my favourite Mega Drive games, which is why it's on my list. Okay, let's go on to number 12, and I've chosen Contra Hardcore, landed in 1994 and developed and published by Konami. This is a great high-octane run-and-gun game. It offers so much more than the earlier ones in the title, with branching paths, multiple characters, but it's relentless action. Of course, its difficulty level is legendary, and it's one of the things that always puts me off in some ways, but if you're up for the challenge, this is a wonderful game in the series that needs to be played. A lot of people perhaps have only concentrated on the ones that came out on the Nintendo consoles, but don't look at the Mega Drive version as well. Okay, let's go on to number 11, and I've chosen Castle of Illusion, starring Mickey Mouse. This is another one published by SEGA, and came out in 1990. This was so groundbreaking. I remember on its release just being blown away. It was the first time I'd seen such wonderful animation, and it really felt like a cartoon coming to life. It's got whimsical side-scrolling adventures, enchanting music, detailed graphics and backgrounds. I think it's a great platformer, really. I mean, whilst as a platform gameplay, I think the Master System is actually the better game, but undeniably the Mega Drive version is wonderful as well and worthy of your time. And of course, if you like that, try the World of Illusion games by Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. These ones in 1992 has more of a co-op experience, but you don't have to play it as co-op. But they're great games as well. They're worthy of your try. Wow, we're at number 10 now. We're at the top 10. Let's see how much deriding I'll get for ones I've chosen. But number 10, I've chosen Rystar, developed and published by SEGA, and came out very late on the platform in 1995. This is a charming platformer where you control a star-shaped hero with stretchy arms. It's got lovely graphics, so bright and bold, and clever level design. This actually started off as it was one of the design possibilities when they were looking for a SEGA mascot. And obviously they chose Sonic the Hedgehog, but Rystar is a great one, and I'm glad that he got to see his own game eventually. Beautiful music as well, one that maybe some people might have missed out on. Often appears on the Mega Drive packs, but yeah, give this one a go. Okay, let's go on to number 9, and I've chosen Desert Strike Return to the Gulf, which came out in 1992, and this brought a unique isometric shoot-'em-up experience to the Mega Drive. Obviously, the Gulf War was in full flow at the time, certainly the first Gulf War, and Electronic Arts capitalised on it, and it came out this really fun, engaging game. It's all about, doing a series of missions, whether it's taking out sort of like radar turrets or or what have you. And yeah, I think it's really, really good. Now, of course, whilst Desert Strike Return to the Gulf is iconic, I also want to strike out and say some of its successors. I mean, I love them all. I mean, Jungle Strike and Urban Strike, they deserve special mentions. With, you know, Jungle Strike came out in 1993 and it follows the same idea, but it's a more interesting storyline, this time going through jungles and different environments. And then Urban Strike, which sadly never ever gets re-released because sadly it has the 2 towers in it in one of the levels, and I think they're always nervous to re-release the game. But Urban Strike came out in 1994, and you know, this time you're fighting through American cities, and it's more narrative driven. It's got a deeper storyline. I think they're all great Strike games that came out on the Mega Drive, and then really you only had on the 32-bit systems, the Soviet Strike. So, you know, but the real trilogy of classics are the ones here. Okay, let's go on to number 8, and I've chosen another shooter with Super Fantasy Zone, released in 1992 and developed by Sunsoft and published by SEGA. This has wonderful colour, quirky graphics. You of course play Opa Opa. It's a horizontal shooter. It's charming, it's wonderful. I think it takes the Master System and arcade original classics but runs with it. I think this is the best in the series, and yeah, just another great standout shooter for the Mega Drive system. Talking of great shooters, the Mega Turrican, released in 1994, landed on the Mega Drive, was made by Factor 5 and published, depends which region really, but Data East, or actually published by Factor 5. This is a really good action-packed run-and-gun game. It has wonderful visuals, fast-paced gameplay. I think it's got the best soundtrack of Chris Hulsbeck. Yeah, I mean, I really love this. A lot of people don't like Turrican 3 or Mega Turrican, as they on the Mega Drive, because they feel it's a different type of game. It's more streamlined, whether Turrican was known for being this big sprawling levels, but I kind of like that change in direction, and I love the music. I mean, this is one that I listen to just on its own. I think it's a real beloved classic, definitely well worthy of your time. Okay, we're on number 6, and I've chosen Battlemania 2, or Battlemania Dainjanjo. Released exclusively in Japan in 1993, and it was published by Vic Tokai. This is a sequel that builds on its predecessor in pretty much every way. You play 2 jetpack girls, and of course one of the things you can do is, with a press of a button, change the direction, so you can either be back to back or concentrating your firepower in a front direction. It plays so well. It's got so many interesting quirky level designs, so many great ideas in it. I just adore it, and I love the music as well, and it's one that I think loads of people don't really know about. Now, you probably maybe know the original game, which was Troubleshooter, known in the US, obviously Battlemania as it was known in Japan, which came out in 1991, and that's a great version as well, as you play Madison and Crystal game. But I just think the sequel took it to the next level, which is why I've chosen Battlemania 2. Okay, let's go on to our top 5 now, and I've chosen Thunderforce IV, known as Lightning Force Quest for the Dark Star, bizarrely in America. I don't know why they gave that silly name, but it came out in 1992 and developed by Technosoft and published by SEGA. This is, for me, I think one of the pinnacle shooters on the Mega Drive. It really pushes it to its limits. It's got the amazing, legendary soundtrack and wonderful action. I think it's the pinnacle of the series. Although, I mean, to give a brief mention, Thunderforce II, which came out in 1989, is sort of like overhead one. That's a lot of fun. But Thunderforce 3, I mean, I could almost interchange as my number 5 slot between Thunderforce 3 and Thunderforce 4. I think both are fantastically wonderful and deserving. Really, half of one and half a dozen of the other. I couldn't choose between them. Talking of not choosing between them, let's go on to number 4, and I've chosen Streets of Rage 2, released in 1992, and was the standard for the beat-em-up genre. I still think the pinnacle really of all beat-em-ups. And it's developed and published by SEGA. The sequel sort of took things further with improved graphics, a wonderful music by Yuzo Koshiro, and you play your iconic characters now like Axel, Blaze. You work your way through, just taking on all the gang or whatever you're doing. It doesn't really matter with this. It's just a lot of fun. Now, whilst the sequel is wonderful, I'm going to give a little shout out to Streets of Rage 1 and 3 that also came out on the platform. First one came out in 1991, so a year before, and this had you play Axel, Blaze and Adam, and they battle their way through the crime-infested streets. It's just as good as the second one, really. I just think they honed and improved things with the sequel, and I prefer the soundtrack, but the first one's amazing, really, in every way. With the third one, it's a bit more divisive. They decided to do their own slightly different thing. Some would say they pushed the formula forward. They expanded movesets, multiple endings, faster pace. They had sort of dynamic sound. I just think it overcomplicated things. I think one of the strengths of the Streets of Rage series, with 1 and 2 in particular, was its pick up and play accessibility. They kind of lost that with the third one, and I really don't like the music. Whilst I appreciate it's trying to be clever, it's just not as iconic as the first 2 games. Right, okay, we're on our top 3, and I've chosen Revenge of Shinobi, released in 1989 and developed and published by SEGA. Now this, for me, was the pinnacle of the Shinobi Ninja action. It's got tight controls, challenging levels, wonderful soundtrack by Yuzo Koshiro, and it's really is the hallmark of the Mega Drive library. It's one that really stands out. Came out quite early as well, and as much as I love Revenge of Shinobi and it had a bigger impact, of course you can't not mention Shinobi 3 Return of the Ninja Master. This is also awesome, and I think often gets forgotten about because it came out later on the Mega Drive. It didn't have the same zeitgeist really, but this has smooth controls, wonderful design, and well worthy of a play too. Okay, we're on number 2, and I've chosen Road Rash 2, developed and published by Electronic Arts in 1992, and has you take a motorcycle gameplay to the next level. I mean, of course, you're sort of what it was famous with the Road Rash series, you sort of not only racing other racers or illegally on the streets of America, but you can punch and kick your way through to the finish line as well. It's like no rules, and even pick up weapons. It was a lot of fun, and I think Road Rash 2 just takes it to the next level really. It just has more to do, more to see, and that's why I've chosen Road Rash 2. But to be honest, I mean, in many ways Road Rash 1 is probably more dearer to my heart. That of course came out in 1991, and yeah, it's the same gameplay, but of course it has less levels than what you had in the sequel. Road Rash 3, meanwhile, that came out in 1995, and I didn't like the digitized sprites. I thought they look ugly. They haven't held up. They should have stuck with the pixel artwork, but it is many ways a better game in a lot of ways. It's got far more locations and weapons and things to try. But yeah, no, I think all 3 are well worthy of your time, and one that I love going back to today. Okay, we're on our number 1 game. We've made it, boys and girls. It had to, of course, be Sonic the Hedgehog 2. This came out in 1992 and developed by the Sega Technical Institute, STI, and published by Sega. Of course, had to be this one. Sonic is so iconic, and this introduced Tails, which was the Sonic sidekick, the two-tailed fox, and it just took everything that was on the original but ran with it. I think it's much better levels, much better music, much more solid gameplay. But of course, really for this slot is the Sonic the Hedgehog series. I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 came out in 1991 and was so groundbreaking to the success of the Mega Drive, and just really took it forward with its sort of the Blue Blur's signature speed. But Sonic 3, meanwhile, and Sonic Knuckles, both came out in 1994. They're good games. I feel they lost something of the purity of the first 2 games. It's ones I don't go back to as much, but they are still well worthy of your time, really. fantastic to play. Anyway, that is my top 50 Mega Drive games. I really hope this inspires you to try some of these games again. You know, hopefully it's rekindled some nostalgic memories or new discoveries. I mean, hopefully there's some new ones that you might not know, and you know, fire up one of your preloaded retro game boxes and enjoy them, really, because that's what the games are there for. They need to be played and loved. So that was my top 50, but I would love to hear what you would have chosen. I know I've left a lot of big hitters on the floor. I know I haven't done action RPGs or retro or turn-based RPGs just because I'm more geared towards the action, and likewise, you know, no John Madden or FIFA or any of those classics, just because I don't really like my sports games, as I mentioned at the top end. But hopefully you enjoy, and really it's just to quickly shout out some amazing games. Hopefully you've enjoyed the trip down memory lane, but you know, if you do like it, please click the like button, please subscribe, ring that bell and comment. It all helps getting the channel noticed, but more importantly, I genuinely want to hear what you think and your opinions. So until next time, keep playing and collecting and keep that retro spirit alive. So until next time, keep it retro.